Today we live in a multi-religious culture. Because our society believes that we need to respect people despite their different views, pushing one particular view in the public square is considered a bit taboo. But interestingly, this doesn't mean that people aren't willing to discuss religion. They just don't want to be preached at. What I've found is that we can still talk freely to people about spiritual things. The difference between coming across judgmental or not is all in the way that we engage the conversation. The key to great conversations is great questions. If we can learn to ask questions, we can open up great conversation. However, our response to their answers is really important. Let's say we're talking with someone who tells us that they have a spirit guide. Now, we could say that we believe they're spiritually deceived, but that isn't going to open up a conversation. Imagine instead of that though, we said, I love that you're a spiritual person. Me too. Tell me about your spirit guide. How does that work? They wouldn't feel judged, and the two-way conversation about spiritual things could be opened up. Then imagine they say some more things you disagree with. For example, all religions are the same. Instead of disagreeing, ask questions to understand and to highlight different perspectives. Here are 3 great questions that can help you do this. What did you mean by that? Where did you get that idea from? And have you considered that, for example, the major religions are all majorly different in major things? How do you make sense of this? So in the 3rd question, you're actually suggesting a different way of seeing things, yet this approach is non-offensive because you're still only asking questions. And then because it's only natural in a conversation that people take turns to talk, you'll probably get the natural opportunity to explain what you believe and why. And the benefit is they won't feel you're preaching at them because you're in the middle of a respectful two-way conversation about spiritual things. And besides, they've shared what they believe. And if you're stuck, then you pull out a gospel tool like your phone and say, actually, this explains it really well. Have a look at this. This approach is covered more fully in Dave Mann's Because We Care video series, which is available for free online. You'll find a link to this in the discussion guide. Let me illustrate from a recent conversation. I was having a great yak with this Irish guy on a plane, and after 20 minutes there was a natural pause in the conversation. He got out his headphones and iPod, and I saw an opportunity. I asked if he wanted to have a look at a 7-minute video on a new app on my iPad and suggested he could plug his headphones in, which he did. He then watched through the video G7 quite intently. Now, I took particular notice of his response at the end and asked him what he thought. It turned out that he was a bit sick of religion because he'd seen the whole Catholic-Protestant conflicts when growing up in Ireland, although he did acknowledge that they were largely political. But he was intrigued by the idea that the Christian faith is about a personal relationship with God rather than following a religion. I asked lots of questions, and because my approach was gentle and respectful, we then talked for about an hour and a half until the plane landed. Before we parted, I gave him a booklet and he thanked me sincerely. Now, why did the conversation open up? And especially with a guy who was a bit inoculated against Christianity. Well, one of the biggest keys is I asked questions with a genuine interest and allowed him to share his story. Through this, I picked up that his disinterest wasn't in Jesus, but in religion. The gospel video not only shared the good news, but it was like an icebreaker, enabling a great conversation about some of the barriers stopping him coming to faith. With the conversational approach, people don't feel preached at. We take a selfless interest in them and their views. We respect differences while asking deliberate questions about the things that don't make sense to us. We suggest a different way of seeing things, but we try to use questions to do this. And then, in the course of the conversation, we get to share what we think, which we do with joy and as clearly and concisely as possible. It's an approach that works in our times. I'd encourage you to reflect upon it and try it. Our next session goes through a variety of helpful tools that we can use to share the gospel. Enjoy your discussion. Catch you next time.